Why is it every community I try and get into is like cringe? It's like, oh, I'll do an animation meme, cringe. Oh, I'll be in the art commentary community, cringe. Oh, I'll be a video, cringe. I cannot fucking win.
Welcome to my very most handsome of ladies, pretty gents, and glorious theys, plus that one freak going through my garbage out the back again. Now, what is on the agenda today? A little tea, a little spice, a little salt. Truly, a perfectly putrid concoction of tastes. Okay, I'll knock that off now. We're talking about commentary and why it loads itself, alright? Geez, you try and spiff up the intro one time and everyone calls you a cringe lord. Anyway, yes, today I will be taking your hand and guiding you through the burning building that I have set up shop in, against my better judgment. First order of business, as always, bother anyone I make mention of today, and I'm gonna be bothering your wife for that second date. You get me? But I don't think I'm gonna need to get the gasoline out for your crops today, because today we're not gonna tell any individual tosspot why they're a knob. Instead, we'll be taking a tour through the many different genres and characters to lay down some groundwork for what to expect in commentary, and to understand why, to an outsider, it may seem so cutthroat and bloodthirsty, because it is. Let me begin by explaining how we're going to attempt to keep this beast of a video in order. I'm going to be answering some questions imposed by me, and as we go, I'll keep the questions up here for you to see, so you know roughly what the fuck is going on. Lord knows we're likely to get lost in all of this. This is a community built off the phrase, actually, and I'm going to lose my mind. With that said, let's begin with the broad strokes. Why does commentary hate commentary? Well, this one's easy. It's filled with pessimistic, self-aggrandizing, deeply paranoid and judgmental little pricks that all hate one another as much as they hate themselves. Okay, yeah, that might not be the whole answer, but you can't look me in the eye and say there's not a part of you that kinda believes that anyway. There is undeniably a huge part of commentary as a genre that is primed to be antagonistic towards their peers. Given that a lot of the content is sourced directly from infighting and falls from grace, it's almost inevitable that things would develop and then devolve into where we are today. Just like the escalation of prank videos into criminal public acts or capitalism into human rights violations. I'm looking forward to seeing how many of you just noped the fuck out of here after that joke. Godspeed, you little edgelords. But we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, aren't we? Let's rewind to cover our basics a tad. What is commentary? The genre of commentary, as it is on YouTube at least, has spread and expanded to include many different sects and subgroups. For our purposes, commentary is simply the expression of an opinion, critique, or discussion of any topic that someone could think to pick apart. However, to be a little more precise with exactly what kind of commentary we're covering today, the general understanding when we say commentary in this context is that there's a focus on online community topics, individuals, misdeeds, or scandals. It's a very pointed social form of critique. And because we're using this outline, that'll automatically exclude channels that produce long-form media analysis, political spectators, and essayists. These channels are technically on the same tree as the commentary that we're focusing on today, but consider them to be on a different branch to the one that we're perched on. They'll be referenced and mentioned to give a better idea of what their contemporaries do, but we won't be picking apart the essayists today. That's a whole lot of jargon just to say that we bitch about things online. And with that said, let's cover the main recognized subgenres of commentary. Buckle in, kids, this is your crash course to the genre. No one asked for it, but here it is. For my peers that already know all of this, feel free to skip ahead, and I promise we won't talk smack about you while you're gone. Stay out? Perfect. Now that the hoity-toity commentary snobs are gone, gather, my sweet babadoodles, and let me guide you through the shit show that is YouTube commentary. Commentary channels are broken into a few notable, but not particularly distinct, sects. Usually through either surface-level substance like their B-roll footage, or by what topics they choose to focus on. Keep in mind, none of these categories are actually rigid, and there's a lot of overlap between them. But this should help to give you an idea of the typical breakdown of these various commentary styles. I'll even try noting a few large names in each genre, so if one appeals to you, you can go and seek them out to enjoy. Retrospective commentary. First and foremost, there is perhaps the most successful and well-regarded form of commentary that has emerged as king in roughly the past 2 years. The retrospective commentators. These commentary channels are typically distinguished by a few key factors. First, they are not trending topic jumpers, like the vast majority of their peers. They will most often look into a situation with the generosity of hindsight and a better understanding than they would have if they made fast, easy content. By the same token, their content is also typically very slow to release with large gaps between uploads. They offset this potential algorithm killer by having videos that can be anywhere from 1 hour to what? 4 hours, Tro, buddy, we need to talk about your sanity, my guy. That's too much avocado in one sitting, oh my lord. Anyway, many hours to say the least. These creators also have a great deal of overlap with the less volatile SAS and media analysis channels that I mentioned earlier, like Faf9, Cold Crash Pictures, Izzy Izzy, Sarah Z, Lindsay Ellis, ContraPoints, Folding Ideas, so on and so forth. The main difference between these types of channels is that the retrospective commentators tend to focus on platform-specific situations and individuals to explain the happenings to an audience, while the SAS will stick more closely to broad social concepts, media reviews, with an emphasis on education and introspection, with the odd lawsuit video thrown in for a touch of spice. Regardless, by and large, the retrospective creators are held in high regard because of the time, study, and effort that goes into each of their projects. And because they're able to take a bird's eye view of a situation once the dust has settled, and they're able to avoid being dragged down into the mud with the rest of us plebeians. They're not always free of getting a little bit messy, but more than their peers, they're able to escape the same petty dramatics that many other commentators will fall into. In a way, these creators are the best that commentary has to offer in terms of their integrity and quality of output. For creators like The Right Opinion, Cordwit, Frederick Cudson, and internet historian... Actually, I have no fucking idea how to categorize the internet historian. I'm not entirely convinced he isn't some sort of new breed of cryptid. But anyway, my point is you'd be hard-pressed to find many people that could disparage both their content and their character. However, because of their more careful nature and drama aversion, the retrospective commentators can also end up being fairly distant from not only their audience, but also the others that inhabit the fighting ring that is commentary. So let's take a look at our other fighters. The commentary bros. Next, in terms of visibility and scale, we have what has been increasingly referred to as commentary bros. As you may have guessed by the name alone, these tend to be male commentators that make quicker, mid-length content. They're also categorized by being a little more on trending topics and have the stereotype of being far more aggressive and ready to throw verbal hands with their targets and other commentators. Now, don't get it twisted, it's not only a boys' club in this category despite the name and reputation. A few female creators that could fall into this category would be people like Tamimi or Ready to Glare. And I'd be doing a disservice not to add Cecil McFly into this list too. She creates behemoth videos akin to the retrospective commentators, but she also shares many of the delivery and personality quirks that have come to define commentary bros. So put her somewhere in the middle. Like, for real, that girl's videos put the fear of God into me. Which leads me to remind you all that there is a heavy overlap in these genres. At the end, I'll show you a little graphic where most of these creators fall, and as I'm writing the script, I realize future me is going to hate my guts for promising that. Fuck you. Love you too. Anyway, moving on to some other examples of this overlap. Before her disastrous career death, Creepshow Art was also among the commentary bros, while also being included in art commentary, which we'll get to soon enough, I promise. And at the same time, commentary bros like Olga RFC or Tipstar are also included in streaming commentary. While longer form content like Nicholas Dioro could even brush up against retrospective commentary. And there's plenty of people that use gameplay footage in their content but would still be considered a commentary bro instead of purely a gameplay kid. Basically what I'm saying is get used to there being a lot of overlap here. These categories are extremely flexible and it's more a form of shorthand to let you know roughly what content to expect from any given creator, or a superficial description of what's on screen while they speak rather than the actual meat of what's being presented. Keep that in the back of your head as we move forward. T-channels. Whereas commentary bros are typically considered to be the most combative group on this list, they're not the most despised or distrusted by a general audience by a large margin. Channels designated as T are the ones that get the majority of the larger community's disdain, and I'd be lying if I said it wasn't somewhat deserved by many of them. T-channels are categorized by a few different things, and depending on who you ask, the answer is going to vary a lot. Recently, the topic of how to define a T-channel is getting thrown around, and it's really just a semantic battle at this point. At the end of the day, even as I list out these categories to you with definitions, it's a guide, not a rulebook. And where anyone actually falls on this list is up to them. With that acknowledged, the most common running theme with T is that they cover topics in a rapid-fire, shallow fashion. They're often considered the tabloid equivalent of the online community. Sort of the opposite of the retrospective channels, if you will. They're about as on-topic trends as the commentary bros, but they're known to make multiple videos on a single topic in rapid succession with each tiny update. Each individual channel will dictate how egregious these updates can be. It can get petty, obsessive, conspiratorial, and completely nonsensical very quickly. Think your Joy Sparkles of the world, like yikes. T-channels generally aren't quite as popular as their bro counterparts, but they're middling in the hierarchy due to how algorithmically friendly their 10-minute daily uploads can be. They're also defined a lot by the topics they choose to cover in their videos. The big overarching themes being petty drama, makeup artists, influencer mess-ups, scandals, beef with the commentary bros, and sex offenders for some reason. One of these things is really not like the others, huh? Moving on, they're also known to have a nasty habit of narrowing in on individual people. This trait is not really unique to them, of course. Commentary bros will do this with people like Onision or the Paul brothers too, but the T-channel's targets of choice tend to be people like James Charles, Gabby Hanna, and unfortunately as of late, Eugenia Cooney. And for a while there, both T and bro channels were just obsessed with creepshow art. I'm still getting those videos rocking up on my recommended page. It is never going to be clean again, you pricks. That aside, they're criticized a lot for choosing specific people and situations to milk until it's a dry dust bowl that they keep scrapping at for more, regardless of if the target may or may not have actually deserved any of it. In recent months, the T and bro channels have had a bit of a spat going back and forth, and T as a descriptor has been turned into a derogatory term of sorts. Although with my explanation for what T stands for, can you really be surprised by that? Even I'm not free of bias against T channels. But as a show of good faith, I will name a few T channels I don't think are complete garbage. I don't mind this creator. I'm sorry, your name intimidates me, but this one, she seems okay. If I learn later she's been up to shenanigans, I will be very disappointed. And Spill is fine. Sure, they're actually a corporation that tried to shrug it under the rug like, hello my fellow kids, but look, I like their brew content, which isn't really tea, it's just part of the corporation, but okay, let's move on. I like Willie Mac's show. Okay, look, I get he's more in line with the commentary bros, but I did say that people get to define themselves some, and if he says he's T, then he's fucking T. I'm not making the rules, I'm just condensing this bullshit for you. Alright, I'll confess, I can't wholeheartedly recommend any traditional T channels. All the ones that leap to mind for me either have presented behaviors I find objectionable, or I can't really vouch for the quality of their content. But there's a lot of them out there, and I'm sure among them there's a couple of good eggs I just haven't seen because it's not my preferred commentary style. So, you know, recommendations in the comments for peeps that like tea. Sorry to make you do my job for me, but I don't get paid diddly squat for the brain cells I've wasted on this, so consider it your donation to my rapidly depleting sanity. Well, with my attempt at an olive branch to the T channels thoroughly on fire, let's wrap up this section. Like I said before, there's been an unfortunate feud between the bros and T channels in the past year, and doubly unfortunately there's popped up a very gendered perspective on this whole feud. We'll circle back around to gender and commentary later. Loath as I am to jump into that particular snake pit, it's kind of unavoidable. But for now, just put a pin in it and remember that T channels are overwhelmingly made up of women and LGBT figures. And before you jump down my throat about homophobia and sexism, I know, I'm just making an observation of it so we can touch on it again down the line and I'll explain myself, settle your busts and butts. Gameplay commentary. Next on our list is a very common type of commentary that acts as a sort of gateway to many of the other subgenres, the gameplay commentator. The granddaddy of this group is usually cited as Leafy, and his influence is definitely still prevalent in the modern day gameplay commentator. The reason for its survival is quite simple. Gameplay commentary is arguably the easiest form of commentary with the lowest bar of entry. At its absolute simplest, you only really need OBS and a semi-decent microphone. And plenty of newcomers don't bother with the latter requirement, by the way. Due to its simplicity and the gateway status to commentary, there's rarely any overarching behavior or topics for these creators. In a way, they even have their own subgroups. The Leafy Cologne, the Ranter, the Confused Kid, blowing out the mic, the Trend Hopper, the Clout Chaser, so on and so forth. Because of this, there's a huge range of quality between each of these channels. Some of these can be fantastic, thoughtful deconstructions of a topic that just needed some B-roll in the background so they could put their clips and evidence and other images on screen. But for others, it's just COD gameplay along with no script and dialogue that sounds a little bit like this.
So, yeah, don't support Dream or John Swan, whichever one we murdered today. Yeah, just join my Discord though. Yeah.
I don't know what that sounded like. I'm kind of scared to listen back to it, but I assure you it still sounded better than half of the shit that I hear. Okay, anyway, doesn't matter, moving on. The only reason they're bundled into the gameplay kids category is because gameplay is what they put in the background while talking about whatever it is they've decided to garble on about that day. To be frank, this genre isn't actually very interesting to talk about because it's a very surface level descriptor of a creator. You usually only hear someone getting spoken about as a gameplay commentator if there's not much else to be said for their content. It's generic in a sense. Once a creator makes a name for themselves, they usually get bundled into any of the other subcategories, even if they still use gameplay as their B-roll. For example, Harley TBS considers themselves to be a coffee channel, which I find hilarious because at the end of the day, they are in fact somewhere between Commentary Bro and a tea channel, so sure, we'll call it coffee for now. But they still predominantly use gameplay in their footage. In essence, you can consider gameplay channels as your generic commentary channel. They also tend to have a great deal of overlap with small commentators.
a title which at first glance can describe a new, young, or small sub-channel, but much like tea, has increasingly been used as a derogatory phrase. I have this thing to sort of touch on this phenomenon, so just go and watch that one when you're done here. Yeah, go do that. Ha, successful plug, Mel, they'll never even notice. Streaming commentary. Streaming commentators share a lot in common with the bros and the gameplay kids, partly because a lot of the time those channels also will hold streams, either with groups of other commentators or on their lonesome to go over new topics or situations too convoluted and not tasty enough for a full-blown video. That said, there are some streaming commentators that only stream and then will clip sections of those streams to specific topics and make that their video content. Hipster and Augie RFC come to mind. These commentators are the closest to breaking news channels as it gets in commentary. As such, they're given a bit of leeway in terms of getting things wrong as more information arises over time. Leeway that is not afforded to tea or gameplay channels. Up to you if you think that's bogus or not, when the only difference between them is one goes live immediately and the other one uploads quickly. That said, they still do have their place, as the streaming aspect of their content gives an audience the space to voice their opinions and stay informed as a situation develops. For streaming commentators like Edwin's Generations or Tommy C, there's also time set aside for those audience call-ins, and they'll also hold in-house debates with those involved in dramas as well as dissenting audience members. In this way, they actually offer a very important space for ideas and conversations that otherwise wouldn't be available. Hell, even I've called in on the odd occasion to discuss topics with the host of a stream like this, if only to try and provide more information to a situation that they were pondering on. The biggest downside to channels like this really is when they're learning things on the fly that an audience might already practically be internet scholars in. When that happens, they tend to step on a few raw nerves, not knowing enough about a situation to provide a nuanced or sensible take in the eyes of the audience. This leads to streamers frequently lacking context or awareness for topics and then getting chewed out by their listeners, which is probably why they've seemed to get a little bit fed up with the "do your research" remarks from their watchers. On one hand, that's literally what they're doing in the process of those streams, so the chat is getting pretty impatient and frustrated with them as they're doing what they're telling them to do. But on the other hand, they're putting out there to an audience, sometimes a large one at that, uninformed takes, and depending on the situation, they're discussing, yeah, people can get pretty ravenous. So, good luck streaming commentators, I'll pray for you at the internet altar. Slideshow commentary. The SCC or slideshow commentary community is sometimes considered the grandmother to the art commentary community, in part because functionally they share many similarities with their B-roll and avatars, but mostly because many of their bigger names jumped over into other genres like Ponder Sprocket to the art commentary community. It's one of the earliest recognized commentary styles, and it's designated by both a B-roll style, that being the use of PNG images of either original or licensed characters, and also their focus topics. The targets of choice having a focus on individual videos, usually media reviews or other ranting and commentary videos, rather than a specific person. But unlike their colleagues, the SCC is typically very self-contained, in the sense that they focus on a specific video or target for that one video of theirs, and then usually they'll just move on. It's rarely a critique of the person themselves and more their work. That's not to say they never branch out into feuds or personal beefs, they definitely do, but by and large, the genre has a focus on dissecting videos rather than condemning people. The SCC is still around today, but it's a much smaller niche community. For example, arguably the most well-known name in the community today is Doodletones, with a channel of 15,000 subscribers. Other well-known members would be creators like Nezzy Monster, who could also be considered to be in the ACC, Bomber Patrol, and Darkness Stone. In fact, you can find a good chunk of these creators in the Cloud Palace. And naturally, I'm going to have links to everyone and everything below, so be sure to check them out if this genre piques your interest. In short, the SCC tends to keep to themselves. They stay in their fucking lane and we respect that, okay? Okay, moving on. DA ranting. And as a final quickie honourable mention, there's DA ranting, as well as the general ranting community. The SCC arose alongside the DA ranting community, and as such, the two are often thought of being either the same or sister genres. The key defining feature between the two being that DA rants have a very specific focus on DeviantArt drama, hence the DA, and, well, they rant instead of critique. Similar to the SCC, many of these ranters grew up and swapped into more respectable parts of the commentary community. Like Spockter moved over into general commentary with a bit of remaining overlap with the art commentary community and ranting spaces. But there's almost always some leftover habits and signs of a creator's starting genre, even once they've integrated into another one. Regardless, ranting videos are almost not really meant to be in the same space as commentary, as they're often characterized by only subjective feelings on a matter, very little critique, and a hell of a lot of rage. But the DA ranter community was a big part of the SCC and art community growing up, so I'd be remiss not to at least make a mention of it here. And finally, after that massively extended summarization of commentary community cults, there's me. This hoe right here. I am, almost to my own detriment, an art commentary commentator. We share a lot of attributes with the gameplay kids in the SCC due to our subgenre also being a surface level reading of our B-roll. Art community commentators, or the ACC as I'll be referring to it henceforth, has a few easy signifiers. They'll almost all have an art speed peak going on in the background as their B-roll, or some other art like paintings, crafts, and the like. They may also have little PNG puppets or avatars like myself here. Hi, hello, yes, that's me. That's me over here. And a traditional ACC member would also usually have a focus on art topics. Go figure. This was to match where their skill and passions lay. The reoccurring topics would usually be things like art tips, story times, art school advice, straight speed paints, with the occasional animation meme or animatic thrown in for variety. However, as of late, the ACC has gradually moved more and more into mainstream commentary, and not in a particularly graceful fashion, I might add. If T-channels are despised by the greater commentary community, then the ACC isn't much lower on this shit list.
Wait, what? Zio wants to come in.
Oh, hey, Zio. I don't think I've ever spoken to Zio.
Do you want Zio to join in?
I'm not fussed. We're just vibing.
We're vibing.
Hello?
Hello.
Shalom. Bonjour?
Bonjour.
Who's Mali-Malware? I don't know who this person is.
I'm leaving.
Who is Mali-Malware?
How could you? How could you do this to me specifically?
What do you mean?
Immediately, and I'm offended.
Excuse me.
Spy, I hate you. Also, who's Mali-Malware? I need an explanation right now.
Okay, so to everyone who has just joined, we've just got Sister Zio in here, Spy V, and Mali-Malware now. So, woo!
Okay, but who's Mali-Malware?
Me!
Okay, but what do you do? What is... Oh, you have a YouTube channel linked to your thing. I'm just gonna look at it.
No, please don't.
8,000 subscribers. Oh, you're in the art community. Oh, God. Okay.
Immediately just, oh, well, this isn't gonna be good.
Immediately disconnects.
Oh,
I hate
jeez.
everybody.
I
in
feel
the
so
art
attacked.
community.
But I'm in the art community, and I thought you were my Roblox waifu.
Okay, I love you. You're like alright, but like
Thank you.
majority of art community people are brain
See-
dead.
Can I-
That's
See, this is what I
No, no,
was
no.
saying before with like when I watch Augie or Nicholas Diorio and they're like, fuck the art community. I'm like, aww.
They're all insane. They bring up
No.
You
This is
pissed
true.
off the wrong person in the art community. They'll share all your DMs. They'll tell everything about your personal life publicly just to get that W. You know, like they're
she's not wrong.
absolutely Insane, absolutely insane. I've never I've
I
never
don't like
seen a
this, it's-
YouTuber get canceled over being a bad friend until the art community came in and was like, oh, we're gonna have fun with this.
In fairness, I just got here. Like, my first commentary video was on the Peaches situation. Like, I just arrived.
Yeah, and she's nice. Don't
She didn't know the
attack.
lion's den that she was walking into.
Yeah.
I made a mistake.
Listen, this is
You
why
did.
you
You made a
don't
mistake.
do art. This is why you do normal commentary, where there's normal people with somewhat normal brains. In the art community, it's all gossip. That's all it is. They just sit on their ass and gossip. That's all
Aw.
they do.
For the record, Zio is a queen and I am fucking terrified of her. But she's also really funny, and despite maybe wanting to eat my soul, she's pretty chill. 10 out of 10 would fear again. Also, Sister Zio's content, for those that are curious, probably falls between the retrospective and bro side of the community. Again, the graphic is coming. So how did we get here? What caused the drift away from art-centric topics to general commentary? Well, it's simple really. The financial and social incentive to do so. And of course the fact that general commentary can just be a blast. Not to mention the potential ego boost it can provide, but we'll get to that later. It's no secret that commentary and drama have become big business on YouTube. Indeed, calling people out online has become a profitable business model practically everywhere. But let's not venture over to the Bluebird app today. Staying in-house with YouTube for now. What was once people ranting back and forth about DeviantArt cringe and laughing at kids on the internet for very little gain has now expanded to include topics and creators of all kinds, some of which have been able to build very lucrative businesses off their work, debatably regardless of the quality or morality behind their videos. In a way, this is the same song and dance that all of YouTube has gone through over time. The platform was originally a place for passion projects, archiving personal videos, and casual socializing. The monetization system in its early days was a lot more limited, and YouTube would pick and choose who was even let into that club. Even then, from what I hear, the money wasn't exactly fantastic till later down the line, pre the first adpocalypse. But the YouTube of today is a business model for many. Man, even cat videos are big bucks now. And who can blame them? Look at them! Fucking precious, I'd give him my wallet. The growth of YouTube as a means for making a name for oneself as well as a living wage while doing things that you'd likely be doing for free brings with it a lot of obvious benefits. It means that people could quite literally come from nothing. The early days of gaming YouTubers that surged into stardom and today can create their own projects while doing huge charity drives is a pretty good example of this. It also gives people the time and money needed to sink into projects that otherwise just couldn't exist due to real-life obligations like making rent and consuming food. But, like all things in life, there is no good without a horrendous bad paired with it. And the bad when it comes to commentary is very, very simple. As soon as you commercialize drama and calling others out, you're creating an incentive to perpetuate this culture and a cycle so there's always another video to make. Always another cash to check. And for a lot of people, another hit of self-righteous dopamine and praise from their audience. Throw on top of that the output demanded by the algorithm and you get daily drama video creators that always need a new thing. Creators that are always going to be on the lookout for a drama to sink their teeth into, subconsciously or otherwise. It's no surprise really that commentary has followed a similar exploitative trend as many other genres. The fakeness of vloggers, the increasingly outlandish pranks, and whatever you'd categorize the polls as. Professional shit stirrers, maybe. There's this firm need to always be producing, and not only producing, but creating things that are bigger and better with every video. Just think of it like this. The pot is YouTube. The water is all those positives I listed. Money, fame, blah, blah, blah. And us, the creators, well, we're this cute little froggy here. And the fire? That's the fucking algorithm. And I guess the chef is the audience. Or is it the other way around with the fire? Okay, let's not analyze this analogy too much. The point is, the water begins to boil and we, the frogs, don't even notice until people are now chewing on our legs. Basically, if people are incentivized to look for drama, they will find it. And the bar for entry becomes lower and lower for what is considered a boilable offense. I think I've mixed up my metaphors a little, but I trust you're following along like the clever little bean that you are. That's swell and all, Mel, I hear you say. But what does this have to do with why commentary hates commentary? Shush, sweet thing. We're getting there. This is all important legwork to understand what the fuck is going on here. So, who hates who, exactly? Alright, this part is actually pretty easy to follow. Thank you for this shard too, future Mal. So, starting from the top. The retrospective channels typically keep their hands pretty clean and don't make overly aggressive jabs at other commentary genres in their content. But there is a distinct note of distaste towards, let's say, the more tabloid-style groups out there. It's a tasteful disdain for the lower rabble, if you will. Whereas the commentary bros and most of the streamers hate the ACC and the T channels. A lot of the time they'll lump the two together, but they also do think they're bad for different reasons. The ACC is usually categorized as being too petty and ready to turn on one another, while they say T channels are vapid, lack research, and milk the shit out of anything, which, yeah, kinda true. Basically, everyone hates T channels and vice versa because of it, but specifically T channels have a grudge against the bros. This is usually chalked up to accusations of any ism they can throw at them, or that they're just really goddamn mean, which, again, is some truth there. But being an arsehole doesn't necessarily make you wrong on your points. So think of the bros and T as if this is Homestuck and they're waxing black for each other. Just a little joke for my fellow fucking losers out there. The SCC couldn't give a rat's ass about most anyone, but they do occasionally butt heads with the DA Ranters, seeing as they're something of bitter siblings from a cringy household. No one really hates the gameplay kids, but no one really likes them either. They're sort of that annoying little brother that might grow out of it, or that you might kick in the teeth if they don't stop deleting your Pokemon save or whatever. I wouldn't know, I don't have siblings, I took care of that at birth. But anyway, the ACC is similar to the SCC in that they don't have any specific grudges, but more and more they're going on the defensive as the pros and streamers rag on them, so we'll see how that develops. They also tend to have the same disdain for the T channels that everyone else does. It doesn't help that the ACC is also predominantly women, but wait, we're not at gender yet, we'll get to that later, hold your horses. And of course, at the end of the day, everybody hates themselves just as much as they hate everybody else. Alright, I understand that probably just went over your head or doesn't really explain anything to you, so for now let's use the T and the bro channels as our case study. Seeing as they have the most pronounced and heated distaste for one another while also sharing a lot of the same things they claim the other is bad for. Which is pretty emblematic of all the infighting that goes on in the community. T versus the world. So why does commentary at large seem to hate the T channels? There's a few basic reasons commonly cited for why people dislike T channels and think of them as lesser. Or indeed sometimes not even being on the same branch of the tree as general commentary. There's a trend with T channels that they're very low effort. Put on some makeup or cue up a still image to sit down and record their thoughts as a stream of consciousness or a reaction to a situation. When there's scripting, it's either extraordinarily minimal or just bad, I guess. The point is, it's considered quick, easy, and very lazy content. Especially when held up to the editing that goes on in, say, a Right Opinion or Nicholas Diorio video, which are, objectively speaking, just better put together videos. But due to the rapid fire nature of T channels, there's no way in hell they could keep up with that sort of quality and keep that consistent output. Even the Spill Corporation doesn't really share the same dramatic flair as many of the big boy commentary channels despite being a corporation. Although it's important to note that the exact same could be said for streaming and gameplay channels as well as the ACC to some extent. Although the ACC at least needs to make their assets. Yet you don't tend to hear gaming or streaming commentators getting dragged for being lazy. I'm inclined to believe this is half bias against G channels and half because most of gaming and streaming commentators are under no illusions about their work and so don't get too big-headed about it. Emphasis on the mostly on that one. They're also critiqued, quite rightly in my opinion, for a lack of research. They're prone to making obvious mistakes, getting accusations wrong, and just generally fumbling serious situations. But with that in mind, it's not like daily uploader commentary channels don't fall into that exact same pitfall. Breaking news streamers also are likely to fall foul to this, as we mentioned earlier. So it's hardly a fault unique to T channels. What also isn't unique to T channels is the habit of feeding off of one another for content. You get this most in daily uploads and gameplay groups as well, but there's a bit of it in all commentary. This gripe is usually framed as T channels taking all their information from another T channel, creating a feedback loop of stupidity and a sea of samey, like-minded takes that put off the other commentators about as much as it bores them. While certainly not unique to the T guzzlers, it's definitely pronounced, so you won't find me defending them too valiantly against that criticism. What is unique to T channels, however, is their particular brand of tea, I guess. Okay, look, this video is sapping my very life force. You can stop expecting any sort of wit from me by now, I think. The point is, T channels have a very distinct voice and style. It's usually sassy, overly confident, and extremely quick to judge. The sort of stereotypical gay best friend back from when television thought all us queer babies only had one personality type. Cordwit made his own video specifically about the shortcomings of T channels, and I'm just now realizing I could have just directed you to him before I wrote this many goddamn words about tea of all things. But fine, whatever, we're this deep in now, I'm not turning back. So here's a perfect summary of why this delivery puts a lot of the commentators off.
How's it going, lads? Welcome to the home of the cute animated guy. Take a seat, get comfortable, grab yourself a drink and shut up. I think I'm going to open up with a rather bold opinionated statement. I don't enjoy watching T channels. A lot of the time I can't find myself getting emotionally invested in any of the drama, and I often can't stand the editing style or often not editing style of many of these creators. I also think their titles and the language they use in their videos is just annoying, and a lot of the time it comes across as a little bit obnoxious when they are talking about something that's actually extremely petty in such a sassy and self-righteous way. This is coming from a personal preference of content. Nobody's inclined to enjoy watching my content either. I even sometimes doubt I would myself.
You see that? That right there? That's what you're missing. Or you've been watching me be a moron. Go and watch Cordwit's stuff, it's pretty banger. But also, I would appreciate it if you enjoyed the rest of this video, please. The algorithm gods are this close to snapping my spine in half as it is. No pressure or anything, though, just my channel's life in your hands anyway. Finally, the last common irritating trait T channels are said to have, hypocrisy and transgressions against the commentary code. You see, there's very few rules in this lawless wasteland, but it's typically agreed upon that there are a couple of hard stops in commentary and indeed all online spaces. Doxing, targeted harassment, false accusations, and copyright strikes among them. Abusing any of these expectations is a pretty quick way to get hellfire raining down upon you from every single commentary bro, half the gameplay kids, and a cluster of voices from the other sections of commentary. You'll also find precious few in the audience that will defend you either. Lesser crimes that will still get you on the commentary radar are things like bad faith and spiteful videos, hypocrisy, and deception in all its forms. Mostly it's the commentary bros harping on other communities for this behaviour, specifically T channels for all three and the ACC for at least one at all times. Because it's not like one of the commentary bros would ever lie to the community about John Swan. Alright, I think that's all that needed to be said. Moving on. I jest. Yes, for anyone not in the know, John Swan got ass blasted across the internet a few months ago for lying to the community and dragging down his friends and colleagues with him. He has since returned with a few bangers and his contemporaries have mostly forgiven him, which I have to side-eye some. Not because I think his initial crime was all that egregious, but because I find it a little odd how readily a community that spends a good chunk of their time railing over honesty and integrity let back in someone that so gleefully lied to them all and let them go to bat for him, knowing that it was a lie and that it was going to bring down their reputations with him. Don't get me wrong, I actually like John Swan's stuff and I'm pretty confident he can grow and recover from this easily enough. I just find myself a little suspicious of the idea that if he wasn't a mix of a commentary bro and a retrospective channel with friends in well-respected places, he'd not be given the same leniency as, say, someone from the tea genre. Actually, let's look at a far more clean-cut example if you're not fully convinced by this. Those laws that I listed before, doxing, harassment, and false accusations? Well, what if I told you there was someone out there that had maliciously, publicly, and on record engaged in at least those three, but was still a huge pillar of the community? You know him, you either love or you loathe him, it's your boy! I can't say it. It's the gnome, okay? It's the gnome. Would it be fair to say that Keemstar is forgiven for certain actions where T channels wouldn't be? Of course, I can't actually say for sure, it's a hypothetical, but if I were to guess, yeah, it seems perfectly possible. The Destiny situation is what comes to mind. Without going too deep into it, that situation include willful doxing, the encouragement of harassment and further doxing, along with, what do you know, the classic Keemstar fuck-up, false pedophile accusations. All topped off with a very proud, not at all hidden agenda to ruin someone that dared cross him. Thank fuck I'm no one he'd give a shit about, honestly. These are all things that I feel a T channel would be dragged over the coals for, things that the commentary bros would never allow them to just walk away from. For example, Angelica Oles, for all her shitty content and mess-ups, has never been as openly hostile, bad faith, or well, evil as Keemstar sometimes. But it's easy to see how they're treated differently in the commentary bro land. It just seems like there's situations that just because it's Keem or anyone really that the bros find useful or like, well, it's all moved on from very quickly by the same people that originally called it out. Consistency? Never heard of her. Additionally, a T channel can actually become a commentary bro or vice versa without actually changing anything content-wise, but by having a social standing shift. Which I think is a pretty good indication that the bros' touted standards have nothing to do with the creator's work and everything to do with the vibes being good or bad. A pretty good example of this would be Truth Sleuth. Her content is as easy as it comes presentation-wise, a still screen, borderline no edits, and rapid-fire video output. She does make up a lot of this with doing her own research, of course, and from what I can tell, she's pretty damn good at it. But that wouldn't actually be enough to save a T channel from its designation if it were not for one key change. Recently, she's been brought into the community bro sphere by virtue of creating good connections with people like Tipster. And honestly, good for her, get that fucking bag, girl. But it's an example of how flippant this all is. Fundamentally, nothing really changed here except that the commentary bros took a shine to her. Creepshow art was very similar. As a part of the ACC, her content was quick, easy as pie to make, and very heavily leaning into trending and tea-focused topics. But she was also part of the commentary bros, or I think the Goon Squad or whatever the fuck Hanson dubbed them at the time, because they liked her. Now that she's been ejected from the community, you'll hear her referred to more as an ACC or a T channel. It's really just a lot of friendship politics and cliques. And I get it, really. I don't fuck with some people because the vibes aren't hitting right. I don't fault the commentary bros for that. I only fault them for continuously insisting it has everything to do with integrity rather than the vibes. Look, my thesis statement for this whole thing is very, very simple, despite the rambling mess that I've become. T-channels aren't dictated by any firm set of guidelines because there's just too much crossover with every other sort of commentary. It's all vibes based. You come across as a vapid, sassy bitch making quick content, you're a T-channel. You make trending videos where you epically pwn some plebeian that dared have a bad take? Commentary. You make daily content about makeup with at least one sister remark thrown in there? T. You make daily videos covering the newest pedo allegations 1 hour after it came out? Do you think YouTube will flag me this far in? Well, you know, you're commentary now. Bad commentary usually, but commentary nonetheless. It's all vibes based. It's a case of, I know my peeps are the good peeps. It's unintentional bias and hypocrisy. It's the othering of undesirables. Everyone wants to think that their group is the good group. So when there's something they find distasteful, it's natural to look for ways to exclude them from that group. Something like, oh no, they're not commentary, they're tea. They're not like us. We have integrity. We make good content. At the end of the day, there is actually no cookie-cutter outline for these things except for the label you want to throw on yourself or onto someone else. It's all just egos and superficial coats of paint over the same nonsense. And one of those coats of paint, well, Okay, fine, I've pussyfooted around this long enough. Let's talk about gender. So, is it sexist? Kinda. It's no secret that big boy commentary tends to be a bit of a, go figure, boys club. But before you jump up and down and scream sexism at the big boys or accuse the T and art channels of being professional victims, it's actually not up to either of those parties who succeeds and who fails. Not entirely anyways. There's a couple of things at play here. Generally, at the end of the day, success on this platform, by and large, comes down to the audience. And if the audience prefers dudes over gals and gays, well shit, I don't know what to tell you, we do in fact live in a society. Additionally, it's not as though there are no successful female commentators. I've listed a few out for you in this video already. But when it comes down to general commentary, it is predominantly men, especially in the Commentary Bros Club. There's also this notable trend of women in the same sphere of critique and think pieces tending to gravitate towards long-form essay and media analysis instead. You may have noticed just how many women I noted when mentioning the other tree branch earlier. For a quick example, Izzy started out in the ACC and moved away from drama content once things got a bit too messy there, and she found better success on the branch of analysis rather than commentary. There is an argument to be made that women just are not the preferred presenter for this particular audience, so they tend to gravitate towards an audience that is more receptive to them, which in this case is the SAS, BreadTube, and media analysis audiences. Why fight to make your way in a community that won't reward you for the effort when there's an equally interesting and lucrative option on the other community's branch? It's almost an egg or chicken conundrum. But one way or another, I don't think it's a stretch to say that women do feel more accepted and at home in groups that aren't the Commentary Bros sphere. And that's okay. It's also not a rule, but just a trend. I can't see Cecil McFly moving over to BreadTube anytime soon, for example. With that said, I'd be lying to you if I didn't say there is some actual sexism at play here. Maybe not in the overt get back in the kitchen sort of way, but a more passive feeling of, well, if women were good at this, they'd be here, ignoring all the contributing factors that make the space inhospitable to them. Think of it this way. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy of sorts. My fellow gals might recognize this one. In this scenario, a teacher states that women aren't good at maths, and that's why there's no women in the university for that class. And because women aren't good at maths, there's no need to teach it to them in the first place. So, no woman ever learns math to be able to enter the university class. And because there's no women in the university class, clearly that means they're not good at maths. Rinse and repeat. A cute little closed circuit with a little bow on top. But like a masculine bow because ew, icky girl things. This is the sort of thinking that back in ye old days kept women from doing all sorts of things. And while it's definitely not as prevalent or restrictive as it once was, there's usually some leftover bad thought patterns and unintentional bias after these things. Speaking personally, I got a whole lot of women aren't into maths, so don't worry about it, and how about cooking class instead in high school? Not in a cruel way either, I might add, more as if they were trying to offer me guidance and let me know it was okay to be bad at maths and just enjoy the cookies. And fuck, you're right, cookies are in fact the bomb. Also, I suck at math. But I'm also not a good cook either, so I guess I failed both stereotypical woman and man 101. What do I do now? Sorry, I got off track there, back to university math class example. So with that in mind, consider these statements. None of the big commentators are women, so women must not like or be good at commentary, so why watch them? And because no one watches them, there's no big commentators that are women, which must mean that they don't like or are just bad at, you get the idea. Don't misunderstand me, this is no call to action for anyone other than my fellow gals. If you like commentary, keep at it. There's nothing biologically dictated in your ovaries that says you can't write a banger script or do some fine video editing. So if you want to give it a crack, don't let yourself be intimidated by the space and surge on forward. Not me, of course. I'm happy being an idiot artist just bumming around here doing my thing. I'll cheer you on from the sidelines though, good luck. Now, the reason I say all of that, besides just being a general observation and critique of the culture, is also to explain part of the reason behind the T and bro divide. Valid or not, the T channels often accuse the bros of being sexist, while the bros often in turn accuse them of using gender or sexuality as a cop-out. Neither is exactly wrong or right here. T channels are more accepting of minorities, be that women, POC, or the LGBT, than the bros tend to be. So of course many of them would wind up there. And again, I've got to stress that this is not to say there are no people of colour or LGBT members of the bro squad. We're just talking generalised broad strokes here. Don't get your knickers in a twist. There's also a few old gender tropes interwoven here. Women were traditionally characterised as vapid gossips with a fraction of their male counterparts' intelligence. And I think it would be dishonest to claim there's absolutely none of that coming into play here. Consider the tired old comparison of a bossy woman compared to a confident man. Both exhibit the same pattern of behaviour but are perceived and treated differently. And on the flip side, the comparison between an aggressive man and an aggressive woman in, for example, a retail scenario. A screaming woman in a $2 store is usually a Karen, to be mocked and not taken too seriously, while a man doing the same has the cops getting involved right fast. There's a sort of ceiling to violence that women can push higher on than men before getting considered an actual threat and then being treated as such. Or, in simpler terms, they can get away with being more aggressive than a man could before law enforcement gets involved. This is just an example to show that these biases aren't always impacting women the hardest, you know? So yeah, perception based around gender is a very real thing. It's not that much different when it comes to commentary. The perception tends to be that women are inclined to gossip over tea, while men are inclined to analyse and critique. I mean, really, what's the difference between someone like Optimus or Tom Dark reporting trending topics and giving their opinion, or just shooting the shit over random commentary topics, respectively, and a tea channel that is covering a trending topic or giving their take on the makeup drama of the day? If it's about making mistakes, then we need only point to situations like the entire pyrocynical shitfest, or Keemstar's infamous false pedo accusations to throw that out the window. If it's about the tabloid and immediate nature of the videos, then streaming channels are just as, if not more, guilty of that. And that's not even to make mention of the near daily rapid-fire content channels like Pegasus and, sorry, yes, you two halls. I love you, but you're an easy example and by God I'm gonna take it. That have many, if not the same pitfalls as T channels, but still get labeled commentary by most of the community. Functionally, the difference seems to be if you like the content or not. I've said this before, I'm gonna say it again, it's vibe-based. It's all vibe-based. Everything is vibes. I've figured it out. I've cracked the code of the universe. This is vibes, vibrations. I've gone off the fucking rails. Tea channels cannot solely be defined by talking about things like makeup drama. Literally everyone did that during the different drama get-ins we've endured. And I don't think the right opinion becomes a tea channel for a video when discussing Tardy or James Charles, then flips right back into being a retrospective commentator when talking about other topics. But at the same time, there's still something to be said for effort. Sure, if you took a man and a woman and had them make the exact same video about commentary and posted it at the exact same time, I'd be willing to bet at least a little money that the dude would get more attention. But that still means the exact same amount of time and effort went into the video, and people's preferences for men in the community just won out. And as we've discussed before, T channels notoriously do not put the same level of effort into their content. So it feels pretty rich to cry prejudice when they're not even putting the same quality of work out there. So, TLDR, is it sexist? Sorta, but not in an overly malicious or even intentional way most of the time. It's not like there's a dick checker at the door to commentary, you feel me? Okay, so what is good commentary then? I don't know, whatever the hell you like, I guess? Oh, right, fine, I'll give you a better answer than that. Look, in all earnestness, you can actually usually identify good commentary by if you enjoy it or not. So much of this is just entertainment and personal preference anyway. Obviously, you can weed out bad actors, cash grabs, poorly researched, and terrible mic quality as a few valid reasons to deem something as bad commentary, but at the end of the day, there isn't any actual firm hierarchy or rulebook to what makes commentary good or not. It's another form of entertainment online, which means the audience is king and what people like is what survives, regardless of the quality. And a little bit of meddling from Susan above. I guess, think of it this way. The Godfather might be a work of art, a classic, an achievement of technical and artistic vision. But I'd still rather watch Venom eat some dude's head than bicker gaily with Eddie any day of the week over it. Sometimes we just want popcorn entertainment, and if you find that simple joy at the end of a bullshit day with Tom Dark or a tea spill video, who out there has the goddamn right to tell you otherwise? Not me. Definitely not me. I can't tell you jack and or shit. Alright, so why is there so much infighting? And now we finally circle back around to the core question of this ludicrously long video, huh? If nothing else, I hope by now I've impressed onto you the importance of the concept that no matter what paint of coat you throw on it, or how much they might bicker back and forth about who makes better videos, or who has the intent of the purest choir boy, commentary as a whole shares in a lot of the same pitfalls as one another. As expected, this also means commentary hates commentary for the same reasons. To simplify it a little, we can boil it down to say 3 core deadly sins: greed, pride, and fear. I'm sure the other 4 are lurking around here somewhere, but for the sake of keeping this simple, let's focus on just those 3. I didn't count to 7 on my fingers, you can't prove shit. Keeping in mind while I talk about this that I am not talking about commentators that are just plain bad actors. Those guys are, broadly speaking, not the norm, and there's little point pointing out where their failings are. It's not like they're gonna care any. No, these are sins that even the most well-intentioned of commentators can fall into. Things that I can and likely have fallen into and will probably fall into again. So let's begin. Greed. Right off the bat, let's address the most obvious, but also kind of the weakest sin. Greed. AdSense, baby! Except a good chunk of commentary gets demonetized. Well, that's okay, the clout will pay the bills. While I do make fun of the "you're just doing this for views and money" argument that gets thrown around like that means absolutely anything, like, yeah, obviously I would love some views and money if you have them to spare, there is genuinely a pitfall within the commentary community when it comes to greed. And when I say that, I don't mean them wanting money for their effort, because just pay them, god damn it. Think of the many critiques we've gone over in regards to tea and daily upload channels thus far. They feed the algorithm, and a lot of the time this comes at the price of research and quality, but they get that bag. This is undeniably an incentive to sell out, in a way. Back in my day, because I'm old as dust by internet standards, selling out meant accepting sponsorships, and now that's about how anyone seems to survive on this hellside. No, selling out nowadays means you sell yourself out, your morals and your ethics. Like I said earlier, commentary has become big business. And while it's definitely a positive thing in many ways for small creators looking to make their mark, it can also bring out the worst in them, especially for commentary content that is so often built off the misfortune of others. It's a simple matter of destroying others to bolster yourself. Once you introduce the chase for popularity and money, then of course there's going to be people that throw others under the bus regardless of if they've done anything wrong or not. You can even see this happening sometimes. A creator begins with good intentions and a true passion for what they're doing, but as the algorithm slowly crushes them between its ever-turning cogs and demand for more, they start to give it that more. Money tight this Christmas? Well, let's talk about Gabby Hanna again. Oh, you're not getting that much attention on Twitter? Time to unmask the next pedo, even if they're only a teenager. Oh, you want that new Gucci bag? Well, let's backstab the nearest YouTube friend that's bleeding. You get the idea. Look, yes, at the end of the day, YouTubers make content for views, and the money can be nice if Susan deems you worthy. But there's still YouTubers out there that make videos that they're genuinely proud of and want to make. And if those creators can make money off their effort and sustain their craft, then by God, they deserve every cent. So really, more than anything, it's just a matter of choosing to follow creators you believe to be earnest in their content, and for creators to occasionally check in themselves and ask why they're making a video. Especially if they're burning out. We've all heard creators talk about being exhausted or not having their heart in the content, but they had to keep uploading lest YouTube spit them out like last week's lasagna. So I guess the moral here is, fuck the algorithm, it makes monsters out of all of us. Pride. A big buzzword that gets thrown around in the community whenever anyone steps out of line is integrity. Or in the case of falls from grace or unmasking of creators, the lack thereof. But as you may have already noticed, the bar for this concept of integrity is a little too bendy and wobbly to work well as a standard. It changes depending on who's saying it, who it's being said to, what the majority in the drama believes is true at any given time, and even just what community it's happening in. With that said, you can imagine why the demand for this mythical integrity from other people not upholding that same standard to themselves can very quickly cause the word to lose all its meaning. A lot of the time, like many concepts in commentary and petty community squabbles, attacks on another creator's character and integrity is used as a mean of condemning others or bringing their trustworthiness into question while bolstering the accuser's own. It's also a useful means for hiding an actual lack of integrity, which is sometimes why there are such huge fallouts and career-destroying moments when they're discovered to not actually have the same moral fiber they've been demanding of others. Think your Kai Weiss and Creepshow Arts of the world. Integrity is not something that can be swung around like a shield to your character or used as a weapon against someone else's. It's something within each individual creator that can only be expressed to others through actions, not proclamations of superior integrity to your contemporaries. Still, this is a very personal failing, and that naturally means it's a very difficult issue to remedy, especially within platforms like YouTube and commentary where creators can be applauded and put on pedestals for their takedowns of others. It's a particularly easy trap to fall into. To buy into all the audience members that are telling you that you're just so based, that you're the sense of reason, that you're the only logical voice in the room. I've had comments like that too, and while they're certainly flattering, they're also just categorically wrong. It's why I take the time to remind people so often that I'm just another idiot flailing around on the internet like anyone else. For creators in these spaces, there's a very real risk that these high praises can bleed over and be internalized without them even realizing it, which is a good way to get commentators that just double down, refuse to accept their faults or their mistakes in dramas, and more or less come across as conceited little pricks that think they're infallible. Like I said, I don't think creators that fall into this trap consciously think they're hot shit, but it's through their actions you can see pretty clearly that their ego has gone and gotten the best of them. It happens to the best of us. It's nothing to be ashamed of. Just check yourself sometimes, bring it back down to earth, and remember that while it's certainly nice to be praised for good work done, there's always going to be times you get it wrong too. Moreover, it can be very frightening to fuck up in commentary, which naturally leads us into that final sin. Fear.
That moment when you think that fear is actually a sin, but it's not. Fuck you, it's a sin now, I said so. Moving on.
It's true I jest a bit when I say that commentators are like prey animals with generational trauma in their DNA that causes them to lash out at anything that might even be perceived as a predator, but there is some truth to that comparison. Like I've touched on plenty already in this video, commentary is frequently built off of the bones of former commentators and public figures once they slip up. Sometimes the builders are even former allies and friends, feasting off the carcass of their fallen comrade to keep the algorithm and audience sated long enough that they can scamper off unscathed for another day. Because there's always others waiting to tear into your flesh and devour every part of you, to bolster themselves while staying safe from ridicule. So I do understand why some commentators double down and defend themselves tooth and nail to try and appear right just to keep the ravenous audience at bay, even when they're objectively, inarguably wrong. We've actually been seeing a lot of this recently in the ACC specifically. Creators like the names Junkie were shown to throw their colleagues under the bus to save their own hide multiple times over, and now that he's the one on the chopping block, the rest are quick to toss him right back under those wheels with them. And it's not like I lack empathy for people like Junkie. Fear can get the best of anyone. But allowing that fear to push you to sacrifice others in the name of your own reputation is where a line must be drawn, and once you've done it multiple times, you've crossed that line pretty severely. Even behind closed doors, I've had interactions with the creators that were well-meaning in their approach, but were met with this highly defensive, distrustful response. As if they were always high-strung and primed for the next friend to turn face and stab them in the back. In a sense, I have to empathize with that. I feel it too sometimes. That fear that there are those in my own circle that would turn on me just as quickly and gleefully as possible if I took a misstep. We've seen it happen countless times already. It would not be a unique situation. Friendship with creators sometimes appears to be this fragile thing that can be predatory in many cases, based off if you're more useful as a friend or a target on any given day. That said, I don't believe that people should close ranks and protect their friends either. Both extremes are dangerous, and I honestly couldn't tell you what the solution is. When the payoff for turning on those that you were once friendly with is monetary gain, popularity, and avoiding being sunk yourself, along with continued praise, it's no surprise that so many commentators are quick to do so. It's actually rather sad. When you can't trust your friends or colleagues, how could it ever be considered a community? How can the audience consider it a community when they never know who the next creator to fall is going to be? How can it be a community when everyone is just waiting to rip one another to shreds? For an example of the almost perfect opposite of this, the animation storytime creators were once criticized for being too tight-knit and protecting their own too valiantly, but no one could deny that they were definitely a community. They didn't turn on each other for profit and views, and if any of them had beef, it mostly stayed where it should, sorted behind closed doors. Airing out grievances with friends that an audience has no right to know about is a pretty quick way to dismantle any sense of community. Well, that got very grim for a second there, so let me take a moment to add this. There are good creators out there, and there are good friends out there that you can trust. With some luck and effort, you'll find them. But you'll only keep them if you treat them right in turn. And that's that. Our three main sins that quite neatly tear apart a community. Greed that sows the seeds of exploitative and poorly thought out content, pride and ego getting in the way of self-reflection and responsibility, and the fear of being the next to be sacrificed to the community's bloodlust. Three very simple failings that would turn any community against itself, but is only put on steroids when introduced to a community that builds itself as a place where voices of reason are heard and accountability is given. I know that you're supposed to take accountability, but let's be real, that's not really what happens out here. So, wait, what was the point of all of this? At the end of the day, what was the fucking point of this video? Well, I have literally no idea. That's it. That's actually where I'm ending the video. That's like 2 hours you're not getting back, suckers. I have been your Virgil. I have taken you through the layers of hell that is commentary, and we have come out the other side learning nothing. Congratulations. Welcome to commentary. Here is your diploma. Here is your honors and your masters. Go forth and create shitty gameplay content. I don't care. I'm gonna go outside and touch some fucking grass. Later, my guys. Thanks for sitting through this behemoth of a video. I'm sure I've upset many of my peers. Hi, please be nice to me or I'll cry. I'm not a commentary bro. I don't have a very strong spine. My skin will break and I will weep. Anyway, to my sweet babadoodles, please subscribe. I try and pick one thing to ask you to do at the end of each video. Today is subscribe, I guess. I promise nothing. If you subscribe to me, that is your own fault. I cannot be held accountable for how your life turns out. Leave a comment below. Let me know what I should do next. Let me know why I'm wrong. Let me know why your community deserved a shout out and I didn't get it. Tell me what cats you like. I don't fucking know. Alright. Take care of yourselves, my guys. I'm gonna go. Oh wait, no, I'm stupid. Hold on, wait, no. Hold on, I do actually. Okay, so after videos like this, I usually try and go and do a stream. So I will be streaming soon and I will be talking about this video and you can all tell me while I'm wrong on stream, okay? Yeah, good. All right, I actually had something to add in this intro. All right, now I'm gonna leave you. All right, goodbye. Can you tell that it's 35 degrees and I had to shut all the doors and windows to record this? I am boiling alive and I'm an Aussie. This is bullshit. I'm gonna go. Thank you for listening to my slow descent into madness. I'm gonna go now. Until next time. Take care of yourselves, my guys.